welcome back to Battleboards Bunker. My name's Richard, and today this movie we're going to be looking at a new terrain set based on the science fiction classic Dune. This is for a client called Boff Studios, who are introducing a new range of figures for a new game they're releasing this year. So this first part of the movie is the main mountain, so I hope you like this movie, and I hope it gives you a bit more of an insight into how much work goes into these projects. Show you the progress on this project, which, as you can see, is going to be quite a major event or project. The mountain is 28mm scale. This is a 28mm new miniature range from Boff Studios, the client, who is hopefully going to be releasing these quite quirky looking miniatures. The whole project is based around the film Dune, but it's only sort of loosely based around that sort of era or aesthetics. So we're sort of, adjusting things as we go along to suit the game parameters that Boff is coming out with. This is the rear of the mountain. You can see it has an interior entrance or sort of entrance hallway, and then there's a platform that sits in front of this, which forms the main arena area. Okay, the first job to do is to cast out the rock, which is done from the silicon mould. For those of you who've watched the Mordor, creating Mordor movies, you'll see how I've actually created the mould and the cast for these. These are resin casts, specialist resin, and I'll break these pieces up and start bonding them to the plastic former, carefully working my way around the whole mountain and making sure that the rock work and the strata runs together to form one coherent sort of mountain piece. So I'm going to start hot gluing these on to the former. This will take quite some time to do this. This is why the rock work particularly is quite a time consuming process. It's like a giant jigsaw puzzle without any plans or guide. So I have to think about where I'm positioning the pieces, how the pieces will flow together to form the overall rockwork shape. Okay, the other thing I'm doing as I'm going around is I'm checking, using the miniatures, using the Boff Studio miniatures, to make sure they can cope with the terrain gradients that I've put in. I've put this little side passage way, this ridge that runs up the side, which gives access an alternative access to the top. So again, I'm just going as I'm building it, I'm actually checking it all the time to make sure that the figures or the miniatures will sort of stand in place. Put all the way round and put on some rock work, and now obviously there's some smaller gaps within the rock work which you could fill in the same way, but this would take a long time. So I'm just going to go round and fill these with a bit of screwed up masking tape. This will help pack out any voids underneath the rock, but also give me something for the resin to adhere to in the next process. Okay, so now I've gone around and filled most of the smaller holes with masking tape. It's time to bond all the pieces together. So this is some resin mix with some filler in it, and now it's just a case of slowly going around and bonding all the pieces, all the little pieces together. This will make the whole sort of rockwork face become one object, and give it its its strength as well, as all the pieces will get bonded together. Okay, I'm going to remove the top section to allow me access to the second level, and that way I'll be able to see more clearly where the join is. So I'm going to add more resin and resin filler into this gap here, and this will make the sort of edging blend more seamlessly and also give it a lot more strength. So I've gone over the whole mountain now with the rock pieces. Now believe me, this took an absolute age to do this, but you can see that now the whole structure is completely covered with the rock pieces. It's really starting to sort of come to life. Okay, this is the back of the mountain, and this is the idea is the mountain continues on, and the rest of the structure would be enclosed in a much larger mountain that would be where I'm stood. So the finish I'm going to give this is almost like it's been cut through the rock, rather than just painting it out in one colour. So I'm going to add some more of my resin sort of mix with a bit of stone dust across this, just to give this sort of like a rough stone texture. Okay, I'm going to start painting the overall mountain now. So first of all, I'm going to go over with the water sprayers with the acrylic paint mix in. So this is a sort of orangey brown that I'm just going to go over. Just mop up some of the excess, just to show some of that highlight coming through. Okay, so I've given the mountain a general wash. The next thing I want to do is, looking at the movie, the actual structure of the mountain has got these sort of stripes, these sort of orangey, pinky stripes running through the mountain. So I'm going to pick some of these out using like a washy acrylic, and start adding in this sort of this idea that the strata is running through the rockwork, creating these strange looking sort of stripes. Okay, so I've put in some red stripes, and I've built that up with some washes, and I've heat gunned that and dried that off. So now I'm going to apply a dry brush over the top of this, and because it's Dune, or based on the film Dune, the sand in Dune is quite a lot more oranger than sort of normal desert sand, because of the colours of the skies and things. So I've mixed up a lighter shade of a desert colour, but it's got quite a lot of orange in it. So it's got this sort of pinky, orangey sort of glow to it, which I'm hoping will give it that sort of alien planet look, as opposed to the sort of Sahara desert. Okay, so I've dry brushed the whole mountain, and so I'm happy with the colour now and the subtleties of the stripes running through it. So now I'm going to airbrush in some more shadows over the rockwork, so I can control, again thinking about where the light is coming from the top, so just emphasising the shadows. So now I need to look at finishing the interior of the mountain, and also the back. This is just the resin coat on the back of the mountain at the moment. It's interesting watching the film, because as you watch the film Dune, the rockwork mountain changes colour throughout the film. So one minute it's dark, one minute it's light. So they've not really kept the continuity very well throughout the film, which gives it quite some character, but that does give us a little bit of leeway on what colours we want. And we don't want it exactly the same as the film. We want to be able to sort of adjust it and put our own sort of taint on the idea. We're just using the film as a basic guide. Okay, so I've got my orange, and now with a finer brush I'm going to go in and put some of these sort of darker sort of black streaks in. Now I want these to blend, so I'm still trying to keep these fairly wet as a wash, and blending as I go along. So now the base coat is on, and I've put in the stripes. I'm now going to go over and just give this whole structure a light dry brush, just to bring back some of that texture that I put in the resin coat to begin with. This will help subtly blend out some of those darker lines, but I think it's just nice to bring out some of that texture in the rock work that I've put in. Okay, that's most of the painting done, so I'm just going to spray in some of the Model Mates weathering spray, just to sort of give it a bit more depth. This one's sandy brown, so I'm just going to add a little bit of this in places, just to make it look a little bit more aged. Okay, so that's all the painting done, so I'm going to remove the top of the mountain. So, and it's now time to start applying these printed cutouts. Now these have been designed on the computer first to actually the right size for the model, so it's a bit tricky. So there's a lot of Photoshop work and Illustrator work to actually get them to marry up. But once they're printed out, I've cut them up, and then they will be stuck into the model. This is because I wanted the interior to be quite ornate, so it will take obviously a long time to paint this. So this is a good way of making that process work. Gluing these on, this is the steps I'm putting in. So you can see that they're going like that. And the important thing is to using a felt tip pen, just take out that white edge that you can see when you come across a cut. Okay, that's the mountain part of the project completed. So I just thought I'd give you a quick overview on how that's looking, which I think it's coming out. It's looking great. It's a pretty big structure, so it's difficult to get an idea of how big it is actually from the movie. I've also included one of Gus's miniatures that he's painted, which is looking great, and I think also the balcony is working really well, so you can see the miniatures there, how that looks. And then that's the door into the rear section, or the main section. I think also the ramp, or the path up to the sort of secret path, has worked out really well. So that'd be great seeing miniatures climbing that. But overall, I think it's looking really good. And I'll just give you a shot from the back. So this is what it looks like with the top section of the mountain put on. So you can still get access to the interior. But really pleased with how the overall mountain works, and look forward to seeing it with the rest of the board when it's completed. Okay, thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this short movie on the construction of the mountain. In the next movies we'll be looking at some of the other features, the next one being the main wall that will run in front of the mountain, which is also going to be quite a challenge. So do join us for that, and thank you very much for subscribing and watching.